Hello and welcome back to another episode of Vikings Happy Hour. Myles, are you ready for this?
Let's do it.
There is finally football tonight, and it's a battle of Kellen Mond and Zach Wilson. I couldn't help myself when I found that song. I was like, I got to put
Vikings
that on.
legend.
I know. Mike Zimmer stands them still to this day, I heard. No, we're a week into Vikings training camp, a little bit over, and we were going back and forth this morning via DM, and it's just like let's do a touch base quick on if training camp ended today, the season was tomorrow, who's making this damn team and who's not. So there's no rhyme or reason for how we're gonna do things here, but we'll just kind of go down the list position by position real quick, and yeah, let us know your thoughts on if you think we're wrong or you agree with what we're gonna say here in the next 15 minutes, whatever. Put it in the comments and let us know. But before we get going, Myles, anything on your end that you want to make sure you call out?
I'm just in my office at work, so let's get rolling.
Let's get rolling. All right, let's start with the quarterbacks, probably the most obvious group here. And now with the addition, the new rule from the San Francisco 49ers last year, allowing you to dress a third quarterback on game day, really makes me feel comfortable saying that they're going to keep three quarterbacks on the roster heading into.
So when they say, do you know with the rule when they say dress three quarterbacks, does that include like even practice squad?
That
Like,
part I don't
do we
know.
know?
That part
Like,
I
I
don't
don't think
know.
it matters. I don't think it
Yeah.
matters to the Vikings right now. But if an injury happens and they need to bring somebody in, like, because if they keep all three quarterbacks on the 53, which I would expect they will, because there's no reason to practice squad Jaren Hall. It's too much of a risk. Especially if he plays well in preseason. But in general, he's a fifth-round pick, so it's not like he's, I just don't think they'd take that risk. But I'd just be curious, like, if someone got hurt and they had someone in the practice squad, does that guy count, like, as the call-up? I'm just curious, like, what that is. I mean, we don't have to have the answer here, but just
yeah, it's going to take a little too long to probably pull up that answer. But it's definitely something I'll look into after. Because that's a game changer, really, if you think about it. If that quarterback can be on the practice squad but still be dressed, I feel like it's probably a no, but who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Or do they keep the same rules as they had last year with practice squad, where you get like two call-ups, and then it's like 53 or whatever that is, like.
Yeah. So I feel like, all right. So with all that being said, you're kind of on the same boat with me. Like Cousins, Mullins, Hall will be the three quarterbacks.
Yeah, I think, unless some crazy happens, it's definitely gonna be this.
Right. Where I think things could get interesting is actually the running back fullback mix. So I think CJ Ham's a lock with the extension that he signed this offseason, which personally kind of surprised me, but good locker room presence. And I know Wes Phillips and Kevin O'Connell speak really highly of him. But let's talk about the running backs for a second, because there's four guys now that are kind of sharing the workload here in training camp. We've heard that obviously Madison's RB1 for all intents and purposes, but McBride, Chandler, Kene, and Wangu, like, they are all kind of vying for that second spot behind Madison. And it's early in training camp. We've heard Kene is the RB2 so far, but we've also seen Dwayne McBride show some promise. I haven't heard a lot about Ty Chandler, actually, now that I think about it. But what are your thoughts on that running back group?
Yeah, I think we've only seen a couple small notes, and I think Kenny Nwangwu was hurt. I'm not sure what the situation is. Sounds like he's been out the last couple of days, but I think with the running back room, I kind of think if all guys stay healthy, nobody like plays extremely poorly during the preseason and during the inter squad scrimmages, I think that's kind of the RB room, including Ham. Madison, Chandler, Nwangwu, and McBride, and then with CJ Ham.
Yeah,
kind of feels like that's like the solidified room. There's no like they keep five running backs, and because they have Josh Oliver. We'll get into tight end, but like Josh Oliver is kind of like a de facto, like not a running back, but like he's an extra guy that can kind of motion in the backfield if you need to, as like an H back if you had to, like those types of things.
Yep.
And so I kind of think the RB room's kind of solidified. I feel like the offense in itself, besides maybe like running back, or besides wide receiver, like the offense seems pretty solidified.
Yeah, which is good, which is and it's another big reason why they wanted to kinda switch to that offensive philosophy with Kevin O'Connell and keep consistency on that side of the
Yeah,
ball as much as they could.
for
Um,
sure.
so I think the only surprise for me would be, if they decided to cut a Ty Chandler, after 1 year. I think Kene Nwangu just brings too much to the table from a return perspective, but maybe also you just hand that off to somebody else, and we can get to into some guys that could do that, in the receiver group, so we can just move over
Hmm.
there. Jefferson, yeah, it this one is the
Yeah,
most clear to me, the top 4. We could skip it
yeah.
really,
The
but I
top
wanna
four
get in.
is the top four. It's the top four. That's clear for you.
Yes, yep.
Okay.
Where I'm curious is, do they carry 6 receivers, or are Brandon Powell and Jalen Reagor really competing for that 5th and final receiver slot? Or is it somebody else that I'm not even considering? Obviously, there's other guys out there, right? I mean, Tristan Jackson just got hurt, but apparently it's not as bad. Blake Prohl has been around a little bit. Cephas Johnson, Thayer Thomas, Lucky Jackson. I think Malik Knowles is another guy who is currently on the 90-man roster. So there's plenty of guys who I guess could show out and take a spot. But to me, I view this as a Powell Reagor competition, and maybe they just both stay.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. The top four is, obviously JJ, KJ, Jordan Addison, Jalen Naylor. Those guys feel like locks. Brandon Powell, Jalen Rager, and Tristan Jackson. I feel like there's probably two jobs to be had out of those three names.
Yep,
I think the only question is like with Jalen Rager, he's owed his like 2.5 million as a
that's the
guaranteed
thing.
this year. That's
Yes.
the like unless they want to swing like I'll give you a sixth, you send us a seventh back, trade him type scenario where they give up something, like a sixth and Rager to get a seventh back just to kind of get the money off the books, like, or they keep him and maybe he's
Yeah.
earned a job. Like I obviously haven't heard too much about him during camp, but sounds like Powell's doing pretty well,
Yeah.
and it has looked good. He obviously knows the offense, so that gives him a leg up.
Punt return
Like
ability.
punt return ability, and I think maybe just a little bit more reliable as a like route runner and receiver,
Yeah.
than Jalen Rager. But so we'll kind of see how that plays out. I mean, again, I wouldn't be surprised if to start the season, we don't know the extent of Tristan Jackson's injury either. Like it sounds like he avoided a major injury, but that doesn't
Yes.
mean we know how long he might be out, and so that could dictate some things as well. But I think we're kind of in a position where it's like those four, and then I think like it's like two spots are open for those three guys, and maybe Tristan Jackson hits the practice squad early because of the injuries. Who knows? But um, I would say like I think they keep six receivers just because they run so much three wide receiver sets. It
Yeah.
wouldn't make sense to only keep five guys.
And I think the other thing to call out too, and this is just kind of a blanket statement across the entire roster, but you know, there's potential that it comes from outside the building.
Yeah,
There
that's
could be
fair.
roster cuts. They could make another move. Remember last year they traded for Jalen Rager in the later part of August. So I think that's another situation. And receivers, I mean, there are so many talented receivers in the NFL now than there have been in the past. So it wouldn't surprise me to maybe see them roll with 5 and then add one later, or they
Sure.
just keep the 6 guys they got, or
Yeah. One
it's all
thing,
up in the air.
yeah, one thing we talked about on our last show, with Jason was just talking about how like the Quasi and KOC have really done a good job of raising the floor of the roster
Elevating. Yes.
and elevating that bottom part of the roster. And I think that's what makes some of these decisions harder is they actually have true talent now at those depth
Yes.
pieces whereas last year they felt they needed Jalen Rager because they didn't have a punt returner. They didn't have the options to like have depth
Yep.
at receiver behind the top three guys. And so like I think now with Jalen Naylor being, stepping up into his second year and KJ Osborne, like those guys, I feel like
100%.
they it makes these decisions harder, which is a good thing. Like
Yeah.
sometimes these decisions can be really easy, and that's not always a good thing.
Yeah.
You want that competition where guys are truly competing for jobs. That means the cream will rise,
Yep.
and I think that's a scenario that we should see over the next few weeks.
And I think in most of the offensive run or position groups, they are solidified, but there's always that one battle, which is way better than it was years ago when it was like a sure thing, like, yeah, that guy's
Right.
not making it kind of thing. Which leads us to tight end. So obviously I think Hawkinson, Oliver for sure in, but then behind them, I mean, what do? You just got Colin Thompson not too long ago, brought in, got long snapping versatility, which they could potentially look to utilize. Johnny Munt signed that deal last year. He's in the final year of his deal, but he knows KOC's system. And then you got Nick Muse as well. So any thoughts on those three as they and how many tight ends, by the way, do you think they even carry?
I think it would be weird. I'd have to go. I don't know if we've gone through the numbers yet, like where like the numbers stand in offense, and like where they keep
Yeah,
three
yeah.
quarterbacks, five running backs. That's eight. They keep six receivers. That's 14. Um, so we're kind of getting tight here.
Also, I apologize. My allergies are horrible today. So if you just see me going in and
All
off
good.
screen, just
All
that's where
good.
I'm going.
No, but back to your question. Obviously, we have the two locks in TJ and Oliver. I would
Yes.
consider Johnny Munt a lock just because
Okay.
he's familiar with the roster, with the offense. He's also really cheap for a
Yes.
third tight end, and I think that's important. And they don't really have anybody that's like truly pushing him. Nick Muse
Yep.
was drafted last year, but I don't know. I
There's
mean,
also Ben
maybe.
Sims,
Oh, I guess I
who
don't know too much about Ben Sims, but
I don't either. But I feel
but what
like
I
if
was gonna
it
say though is, yeah,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Well, I just tight end is just so random at times. Like maybe a guy like Ben Sims is really doing all the right things behind the scenes and that he's cheaper, right? He's a 2023. I think he's a rookie. Yeah, he's a rookie.
Yeah,
Um,
college Frasian. Yeah.
so maybe that's a route they go to. But what were you gonna say?
Well, depending on the numbers, I could really see them keep four guys, and it's
I have
basically
four slotted.
Between Colin Thompson and Nick Muse. But here's kind of a like under the radar thing that I think they could be doing is they slide Colin Thompson to practice squad, and then he's
Okay.
also like their emergency long snapper.
Mm,
So like if something happens to long snapper, you have a guy that you have called up that can long snap in a pinch if
yeah,
you need him to. So maybe he's cross training doing that. And I think that's a just if you can keep those like guys like that's a value to have on a roster, a guy that can slide
100%.
in and be a blocker at tight end, but also you could throw him in at long snapper if you had to in an emergency situation. So it could be like a Nick Muse versus um, Colin Thompson type situation,
Yeah,
and what the
yeah,
other guy kind of gets the practice squad role.
yeah, yeah. That wouldn't shock me at all. Um, Offensive line. I don't know if we actually have to spend a whole lot of time on it. I
Well,
don't think there's a
so we
lot
know
of battles on it.
we know the starting five, and then we
Yep,
know the start like the next.
the
Then we
next
know that
tier.
Austin Slotman, Oli Udo
Blake
are like
Brandel.
locks. I would say well for sure Oli Udo and Austin Slotman are locks just because of like the positions they back up.
Yeah,
But yeah, and then you go to Blake Brandel, who I think is a good player as well, who's in a contract year. I would say he's
Darian Lowe
probably
as
locks.
well.
But Lowe was a draft pick last year who they seem to like, so that's what nine right there.
And you
That
make a
might yeah.
you've
Go ahead.
called it out throughout this show already and multiple times on other shows, but I think it's a good point to make that there is a difference between a Kwesi draft pick and a Rick draft pick, and that sometimes could be the
Mhm.
difference maker in some of these decisions because, like, yeah, maybe we don't know much about Lowe, the player from the outside, but they know a lot about him, and they obviously scouted him and used a draft pick on him, so they want him, and that may give him an edge over somebody that you know I don't want to say Oli Udo would go because I think they like him as well, but that's I'm
Well,
just kind of trying to
I
put
think
that
his
out
contract's
there.
guaranteed too.
Is it?
I think
I don't have
yeah,
that in front of me right now.
so his contract is essentially I mean, he has to obviously make the roster, but um, he's guaranteed that money, and so there'd be a 2.5 dead cap
Okay.
charge if they cut him. He only counts 1.2 against the cap. So because he got that the we've talked about this so many times. He got the what do they call that?
That that vet thing, right?
contract, a vet
Yeah.
exemption deal, and so I just don't see any reason to cut him in that case.
Yeah.
But Blake Brandel, who seems to be cross training interior, has
He
also
played
been
really
a
well
backup left
last year
tackle.
too.
He did, so I would be surprised if he was a guy, especially with Chris Reed hurt right now. I'd be
Yeah.
surprised if he was a guy that they were willing to just cut at this stage. I think
Yeah.
it wouldn't make sense unless Chris Reed comes back and can show he's healthy, but we still don't know what the deal is with him.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we're aligned, and the guys they
So
brought in today, I don't
real
think
quick,
are.
what are the numbers we're at? So we as of right now 9 linemen.
I have
I'd
28
say 9.
offensive players. 3 quarterbacks, 5 running backs with CJ Ham, 6 receivers, 4 tight ends, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11 offensive linemen.
So we're looking at 25 spots to go, and that doesn't include special teams. That's kind of tough.
Well, let's
They might
talk
have to.
defense quick.
Well,
And let's
let's do
see if
it.
we need to go back.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So let's start with the defensive line. We'll just include everybody on there. So I think Harrison Phillips is a lock. Dean Lowry is a lock. James Lynch is
probably
yes.
a lock too.
James Lynch and Ross Blacklock are 2 for me that I'm kind of like, I don't know what they're going to do there.
Yeah,
I think Ezzy Otomoe.
Yeah,
I think he's a lock.
I think Otomoe is probably a lock too. I think Bullard, Blacklock, and Lynch are all probably competing for one job. I wouldn't be surprised if they're competing for one job because Jaquelin.
Oh yeah, I forgot about him. Yes,
he was. So he's another guy that is probably a lock unless he falls off of a cliff.
yeah.
He's probably a lock for the roster as a 5th round pick. So
again, it's one of those things where they drafted him, so they're going to want him.
So you got the 3 starters, and then you got Otomo, Jaquelin, Roy, I should say, and then you have either Bullard, Blacklock, or Lynch. And I mean, I feel like it's probably between those 3 for one spot.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't have any call outs on there. So what's that number total? Because I want to keep track of that.
That's 6. Let's just say 6 for the.
So you got
the
60 line. All right, let's move up to the linebackers. Jordan Hicks restructured his contract. We have Troy Dye, Troy Reeder also brought in this past free agency. There's a couple depth guys that I just undrafted free agents I don't think will probably make the team. Brian Asamoah, Ivan Pace is doing really well. And then somebody, at least from a special teams perspective, and shame on me, I need to learn his last name, William, the last name.
Cuenco?
Is that how you say it? I know Matt Daniels, the special teams coach, called him out. So I feel like he could be I don't want to say a lock, but a good bet to make.
I would say it'd be tough when you only start 2 inside linebackers to keep 6.
Yes.
I feel like, but because of special teams, you're probably looking at 5. So obviously we know Brian Asamoah and Jordan Hicks are the starters. Those are those guys are probably locks. I'd say Reeder and Dye are probably locks too.
Yes.
Just familiarity and
you don't think Jordan Hicks is one?
I did. No, he's the starter. I said Hicks and Asamoah as the 2 starters are locks.
Okay.
And then I think the 2 backups behind them, Reeder and Dye, are probably locks. And I think you got Pace and then Cuenco are competing for that last spot.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. The Pace one is interesting to me. Undrafted free agent. I know he's playing well. Try not to let my bias for, I enjoy him as a player. I'm going to need to see what he does in games, I guess, to be 100% sure about a roster position, but definitely practice squad in maybe a surprise roster addition at the end of the training camp.
For sure.
Outside linebacker now technically is Daniil Hunter, Marcus Davenport, DJ Wanham, Pat Jones, and there's a bunch of other ones too. Andre Carter.
Again, I think those. Yeah, keep going.
Andre Carter and I'm missing
Luigi
somebody.
Belaine.
Yes.
And then
Belain.
you got Curtis Weaver and Benton Whitley.
Yep.
I mean, I kind of feel like, again, this is kind of like the inside linebackers. Is like the top four guys. You know,
Mm-hmm.
Hunter, Davenport, Jones, and Wanham are all locks. But then you got guys like Luigi Belaine, who surprisingly made the team last year. And then you got Andre Carter, who's on PUP. So that could be one of those situations where they
Yes.
kind of hide him. They kind of hide him and redshirt him this year.
Yeah.
So that wouldn't surprise me at all if like Luigi Belaine just ended up being that fifth guy,
Mm-hmm.
and Carter just got snuck onto the stayed on the PUP or IR or whatever they end up doing with him if he can't get healthy enough. Because you know
Yeah.
sometimes teams will IR a guy even if he's not going to be out the entire season,
Yep.
just to kind of stash. And so, wouldn't surprise me if something like that happened.
Yeah. So what's our number at then? You got 1, 2, 3,
So I think
4.
five. I think five outside linebackers. You got five outside linebackers, six interior, so that's 11. You got five inside linebackers, so that's 15, 16.
Ooh, we're getting
And now we got
close.
DBs.
And
Yeah.
this is the tough one, I think. So, well, I wouldn't say necessarily tough, but Byron Murphy, lock. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I think a Caleb Evans is a lock. Mekhi Blackman, lock. Jojuan Williams, I think, is a lock. Andrew Booth Jr. I doubt they say any like that. I guess that could be a
He's a
surprise
he's a
cut,
lock. It's just one
but
of those situations where
yeah,
how is he health wise? Because it sounds like he got hurt the other day, so we don't know where he's at. But there's no way they're cutting him
yeah.
this quickly.
And then it sounds like Tay Gowan is playing pretty well so far this training camp. So maybe he's in the mix.
What's Jay Ward listed as? Is he
Jay Ward
considered a
is listed
corner or
as a
safety?
safety. And by the way,
Okay.
we asked Alec Lewis of the Athletic the other week where he was kind of lining up, and he said safety. So
Hmm. Okay, because
yeah,
he kind of gives me the Josh Metellus vibes of like a guy that can kind of play that like that star position, and maybe
yeah,
they kind of try to groom him in that role. But I mean, obviously, right now it's letting him kind of figure it out at one spot first.
yeah. It's Josh's to lose for sure right now.
100%.
Um, so with that cornerback group, I mean, I think we're counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 corners. If you go with Tay Gowan, or
Yep.
maybe they just roll with 5.
Yeah, that's one of those spots that like it wouldn't probably surprise me if they rolled five, but if Tay Gowan shows out enough, like, you need that depth because Andrew Booth can't really be trusted. I mean,
Yeah,
maybe that's something you do, or maybe that's the spot where they go outside the building at cut downs
yeah,
and try to find somebody too. Like that's one of those positions at the back end of it that you're kind of like still unsure of.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Um,
So let's just
so
say five, or do you
yeah,
want to say five or six for now?
let's say 5, only because
Okay.
I don't think they move on from Jay Ward quite yet, and maybe they just use
No.
him in a versatile role as like a your 6th cornerback or your 5th safety kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so we can
100%. I agree with that.
shift to safety here. This is probably the most straightforward group. The only one that feels like the odd man out, unfortunately, is Theo Jackson, and I just hate kind of saying
Yeah.
like these are real people at the end of the day, and so it kind of sucks to
100%.
be like, yeah, you're out, but when you look at Harrison Smith, Lewis Seen, Cam Bynum, Josh Metellus, like I think all of those guys, the way they speak about them as players, locker room presence, draft status, like all of them will be on the roster. And then, like we just talked about with Jay Ward, I don't know if he's, an immediate backup, but he definitely is on that list of, you know, he could be a corner, he could be a safety, he can kind of step in and do whatever. So
Yeah, I
anything
agree
to
with
add
that.
off of that?
No, I think you made a great point. Like Jay Ward's kind of that like hybrid guy that like falls in both camps, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that just helps keep uh, again better depth across the board at multiple spots. So yeah, I'm with you. I think those feel like locks right now.
So that's 5 safeties then. So we're at 15, 20, 27 on defense. And then what we were on offense?
That math's not mathing, dude. 28 plus 27 is 55.
Shit. And we don't have special teams, which
we don't have special teams.
we don't need to get into the battle of Greg Joseph. But there's 3 special teams players.
Yeah, we would need to cut five players to make room for the 3 special teams guys.
So for me, then, what I'm doing here is we're cutting somebody from inside linebacker.
Mm-hmm. So you're cutting Ivan Pace, more than likely.
Yep. And maybe Troy Dye.
I wouldn't cut both. I don't think you can cut both. You need to have at least 4 linebackers, inside linebackers.
All right, so you're going down to 5 inside linebackers. Do you cut a defensive?
4.
I had 6 inside linebackers down.
Oh, you had 6?
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so that my numbers are way off then. So yeah. So there's only 26 defensive players.
Oh, okay. So we need to cut 4.
All over the board here.
But I think what you could do then, because like a guy like Marcus Davenport plays some interior, you could probably cut someone from the interior. So maybe you just cut that 6th guy, like that Jonathan Bullard, Ross Blacklock, James Lynch spot altogether. Yep. And so then you have 5 guys there.
Yep. Okay. I'm down with that. Still need to cut more, and I think it's got to come from offense.
I mean, maybe it is 5 wide receivers, but that just would have a hard time with that one. But I mean, if that's what they needed to do early in the season.
That's why. So what do you think they try and sneak McBride on the practice squad or Ty Chandler?
No, I think the running back set. I really do. I don't see any need to cut any of. I just don't see any need to cut like.
Well, we got
and maybe like, I mean,
3 tight ends then. No Colin Thompson.
Yeah, I mean,
no Nick Muse.
Yeah, I could see that. That would make sense. Because what did they only ran 3 tight ends last year, right?
Yep. Yeah. So we need to cut 2 more.
So that makes sense. And we did 5 wide receivers, right?
Yep. So this in this scenario, then I think that tells me that Jay Ward is going to they're going to try and put him on the practice squad.
There's no way. He was a 4th round pick. I just
don't know where are you cutting from?
I mean, there's obviously going to be a surprise somewhere that we're just missing.
I'm telling you, man. I think it's someone in the running back room. Do you need to go?
Might be. Hey. Yeah.
I'll wrap the show up here. I'm going to make the cuts. Thanks, Myles. We'll chat with you later. That's Myles. I guess we went a little long for him today, but we got to cut a few more players. Myles doesn't quite agree with me here, but I'm going to go ahead and cut Brandon Powell. We're going to go 5 wide receivers this year. And I also think I'm going to do a surprise cut in the running back group. I think they enjoy both Ty Chandler and Dwayne McBride. I think one of them might get cut this off season, or this training camp, I should say. So not sure which one, but one will be gone from that group. And so that gives us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That gives us our 5 spots that we need to cut. It's going to be a tough decision, and a lot of things can happen here in the next week or so, next couple of weeks with the preseason games to really kind of establish these guys in, on the final 53. But back to kind of the point that Myles has made all offseason, as well as the rest of the folks on CTP and Vikings Happy Hour, is, Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell have elevated that roster to really ensure that these decisions are difficult. It breeds competition, and it makes sure that this is truly the best 53-man roster. So it's going to be a fun journey. It's only the early part of August, so lots of content to come up, lots of roster decisions to make. Injuries could happen, though we pray that none do. But yeah, let us know what you think. August 3rd, this episode will drop. Let us know what you think. Who's going to stay? Who's going to go? Who do you want to see go? Who do you need to stay? And then make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, and we'll be back with more Vikings content down the road. Until next time, everybody, Skol Vikes.